Hey, welcome everybody. We should be getting started here in roughly about 1 minute. Just give you guys a quick heads up. All right, it's top of the hour, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Wanted to thank everybody for joining our webinar. This is a new series that we're putting on at public sector, and you guys should expect these at a minimum once a quarter. So please be on the lookout for the invites, and I'm sure your counterparts or your reps will keep you informed. Today we're going to be talking about MAS, and I've got two of the best SCs I have on my team around MAS discussing this with you. So you guys are in good hands. One thing let's get out some of the logistics. So we are going to save questions. We're actually, because of the time frame and the content, we're not going to be allowing any audio questions. But as you guys can see, you can send questions to us, and we got a couple staff members on the back end that will be answering these questions for you. Due to the number of questions that we could get, if we don't get your question answered for you, you will definitely receive a response via email after the broadcast. And from there, I think we're good to go. We got quite a few people on now, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Rich and Brett. And Rich, it's your show.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out today to spend with us to learn more about the NetScaler Management and Analytics System, also known as MAS. My name is Rich Morrison, and I'll be one of your co-presenters today. Alongside with me, I have Brett Engel. Brett and I are both networking SCs out of the U.S. public sector team. And what we wanted to do today is focus on three things on our agenda. Those three things are to identify and give you a level set of what is MAS. MAS is a very feature-rich solution, so we're not going to boil the ocean today. So what we did was identify some of the common use cases that we're seeing resonating across our different customer segments. So from everybody from state, local government, to our federal agencies, and to the agencies and missions that support our armed services. And then we're going to segue into a guided tour and demo of the MAS interface so you can see how simple and intuitive the platform is. And hopefully by the end of the session, you can realize some of the benefits MAS can bring to your environment. So what is MAS? The way I like to describe it is MAS is a centralized network management, orchestration, and analytics tool that supports all of our Citrix networking platforms and also supports third-party integration with solutions such as HA Proxy. Now, you may be familiar with some of our previous management solutions, such as Command Center, Control Center, or Insight Center. If you speak to product management, they will tell you that MAS is the revolution to all those three different management solutions integrated into one, where they've added additional machine learning capabilities and intelligence into the platform. Now, when you look at a management platform, there's some basic, what I call commoditized table stake items that should be included into that platform. So you think about centralized management, the ability to support multi-tenancy, hardware inventory capabilities. Things you'll see with MAS is our ability to support software-defined network integration, so SDN. If you're looking at something with Cisco ACI or VMware NSX, automation integration. You're looking at things to do with the cloud, so whether you're moving workloads into the cloud, whether you're looking to build out your own private cloud, whether you're looking to have a hybrid cloud model, MAS is going to be an integration point there as well. We're really going to see where MAS really differentiates itself from other management platforms is based on the application-centric view it takes, and based on that machine learning and intelligence I mentioned earlier, building a feature-rich analytic database and information you can get out of the system. you can get details such as latency both from the client side as well as the back-end server side. You can get details such as round-trip timer information that you can leverage to make actionable decisions. And that's really going to be the benefit of MAS, that you have all these different network devices within your environment, whether it be at the edge, internal within your data center, out in your cloud, provide a lot of different data points. MAS is going to take all of those, aggregate them, those different data points, and put it into information that you can leverage and make an actionable decision on. So as I mentioned, we're just going to focus on a few different use cases that we've seen resonating across the board. And we're going to go into a little bit of detail as we go through the presentation today. First, we're going to talk about a little bit about the centralized management capabilities of the platform. I mentioned MAS supports all NetScaler. So NetScaler, for those who are not familiar, is our application delivery controller. What is an application delivery controller? So an application delivery controller, or ADC, is a multifaceted appliance, application delivery appliance. So it can support things as server load balancing. It can support global site load balancing for multiple data centers for disaster recovery. It can support SSL VPA connectivity for client or clientless. A lot of different information and functionalities you can provide within that platform. MAS supports all form factors, whether it be our physical, our virtual, our multi-tenant, or our container-based platforms, as well as our access gateway platforms for our Citrix applications such as XenApp and Desktop, as well as some of our newer products such as Security Web Gateway and our SD-WAN solution. One of the more popular use cases you've seen with MAS and has been really resonating across the board is our SSL managed certificate management platform. So within MAS, there's a dashboard functionality that allows you to get visibility into your certificates. You can identify when a certificate is going to expire. You can identify what protocols and ciphers are running across my different applications. If I have to adhere to different audits, maybe I have to run certain protocols such as TLS 1.1 and above. Can't have anything like SSL v3 or TLS 1.0 in my environment. How can I ensure that I'm adhering to these security practices? MAS can help with that. Another thing we're going to take a look at is how can we reduce troubleshooting and reduce that troubleshooting time. Troubleshooting can be a very long and arduous process. And the reason because it could be a needle in the haystack. And the reason is that you get a problem, try to identify what the problem is. You don't know where you want to begin. Is it on the client side? Is it on the data center side? Is it within the network? What's going on within the environment? Within MAS, in our analytic insight modules, we can provide a lot of in-depth information to give you visibility into where to begin that troubleshooting and drill in further to identify what the error may be. Another use case we want to touch on what I call configuration simplification. And this is really to address that late night, up 1 o'clock in the morning, multiple devices I'm trying to configure, and I make sure everything's consistent, and I'm up late, and I don't want to fat figure anything. So I want to find a way to simplify that, make it more consistent, more seamless to deploy my configurations. So we'll touch on how MAS can address that particular use case. And last but not least, we'll talk about developer integration. So a lot of customers are looking at DevOps, or they have resources internally, application developers, to build out their own applications. And so we're looking to provide access or a tool to give you production-like type services for those applications. So we're going to talk about how MAS can help facilitate that use case as well. So now what we're going to do is spend the next few slides going a little bit more detail into each one of these different use cases. And we're first going to start off with the application visibility we can provide within MAS, so you can get overall health of your application and the delivery controllers that support the traversing of those applications.
If you look at today at the IT world out there, our environment is much like a war zone. We have attackers coming from all different places in the world. We have development occurring with Scrum and DevOps, and lots of things out there that can make our life very chaotic and appear out of control. MAS helps us bring that back into control, because what we're going to be doing now is looking at the world from how our users see the applications they're running. Most management tools will have a very good way to look at the devices they're managing, or maybe a specific process, or a specific protocol, but the real key is to look at what the user is doing, what the user is perceiving at that moment. So on our main application dashboard here, we show the status of all of our applications we're providing to the internet at this point. And we can very quickly determine at a glance what's going on. You know, who's firing a heat-seeking missile at us at this moment? You know, where's the attack occurring? What application is causing problems? Who's got a very high client connection rate at that moment, and what do we need to do about it? So from this screen, we can drill down deeper into each of these applications and see what's going on, which we'll do in our demo. But I want to talk a bit about how we do this. So we take the NetScaler metadata, which includes the latencies and HTTP errors that we detect, you know, security attacks coming from our app firewall, and roll it into an application health score. That allows us to determine what the user experience looks like. Add in latency and availability, we're picking up off the network, and we have a very, very clear picture of what the user is experiencing. So if we have an issue where the user is having an error on a web page, or, quote, I can't get that application working, it may be as simple as an HTTP error that was introduced during the update the night before, and very quickly we'll see that on the NetScaler. So it gives us a wonderful way to understand what the user is actually seeing. And on the application side, we'll go out and look at the actual response times and performances and generate a performance metric on this. So for example, we're looking at SharePoint now, and we're noticing its aggregate performance score is not bad, but it's been falling. And our server resources are going up, and our NetScaler resources are going up. So this means we're getting more active here. And if we look down at our app score components, that we have response time slowing down. We're seeing some CPU utilization and some memory utilization on the NetScaler. So this gives a very quick way to look at what's going on. Normally you'd have to go out and run some command line operations to figure this out, or possibly bring up the GUI and examine what's going on. But here I know by application what's happening. I don't have to go track down which NetScaler is running which application and which VIP and which this and which that. I see it right here. So my help desk people who are not skilled with NetScaler could look at this SharePoint and determine immediately there's a problem. It's probably with a back-end server and maybe a little bit with the NetScaler. So it's a very powerful tool at this point for visualization. And how do we do all this? We take all the data from our underlying protocols like HDX, web, our gateway, and our security sources of data, and run them through our analytics engine and develop true information out of them. And those can be used to solve the problems listed in the top part of the slide. Things like failure to launch an application. I mean, the user may just click and say, "Oh well, I'll come back later," and you know, we get dissatisfaction from the end users that way. What if a certificate fails or expires, and suddenly we're out? We have an outage. We're going to be tracking those through our SSL page and make sure that we alert on those before they expire. So a lot of these tools are very, very powerful to allow us to get ahead, be proactive, not reactive. And we haven't forgotten our XenApp Zen Desktop users either. One of the interesting things about HDX, a wonderful protocol for accelerating the virtualization environment, but it runs across a single TCP or UDP connection and makes it difficult to see what's going on inside. Nice thing, the NetScaler sits in the flow of that data traffic and allows us to look inside that traffic flow and understand what users are doing. So I can see that Rama's is not on now, but he had his last response time was 1.2 seconds. Flornal is on right now and is 2 sessions. He's 1.9 round trip. Those are bad. What's happening? Where's the problem? Well, one has a high WAN latency. The other one has a high data center latency. So two different issues, but ones that we immediately illustrate as being problems, and we can then associate those with the appropriate groups like wide area networking and maybe the back-end data center group to figure out what is going wrong. Also, we can drill deeper into that, and we'll do that in the demo to show how applications are performing aggregately across all the users. So now you get to see not only which users are using what, but which applications are in use and how are they performing. So very, very powerful tools here.
And security has been top of mind. So within MAS, you could get a security status of all your applications from our security dashboard. And so Gartner had a report came out not too long ago where they said 95% of CIOs expect security threats to increase and impact their organizations at some level in the future here. So it's nice you can have a security dashboard you could come to and get a high-level overview of the security status of your applications. So coming up to the top left-hand corner, I can see two different tools I can leverage here. My threat index, which is based on a scale of 1 to 7, and addresses the criticality of an attack against my application. The higher the threat level, the higher the criticality of the attack. And inversely, I have my safety index. On the same scale of 1 to 7, what the safety index reflects is what are some things you as the customer can do to protect your environment. So as I come down, I can get a quick view on the total violations I'm seeing across my environment. And based on policy settings I might have, certain violations I might want to have blocked. So I can see which, at an aggregate level, of those violations are being blocked. I can filter this information based on the last 7 days, last month, and get some of that metrics down here on this right-hand side in this dashboard view. So I can see my top application threats across the board from my application name. I can see my threat index and the variation of that threat index change. And I can see if it's trending up or down over that same period. I can get that same information based on IP as well as location. If I come in here a little bit, I can get some more details of the different type of application security threats I'm experiencing. And you can see these little bubbles or circles going across on each application threat. I can hover over that, get information on the number of attacks, at what time, and drill in to identify where those attacks are occurring. Next thing we want to talk about is the certificate management. Now, for those out there that have to deal with certificates, they know it can be a hassle. It could be cumbersome. It's not like your certificates all expire on December 31st of the end of the year, right? It cascades throughout the year. And keeping track with spreadsheets and different documents to try to identify when and where and what can be very troublesome, especially if your plate keeps on piling up and up and up with additional priorities and activities. So wouldn't it be nice to have a tool where you can go and get central visibility into that environment, identify and get email notification or text notification when I'm going to have a certificate expire. So I can be more proactive in my environment versus being reactive. I can mitigate the support ticket that somebody calls in and says, hey, I can't authenticate to my application, what's going on, just to identify after some troubleshooting time that certificate expired. Now I got to spend time to remedy that situation and update the certificate. So within MAS, you can get a dashboard view of all this type of information. You can come here, you can see how many certificates have expired. You can see whether it be within the last 30 days, coming in the next 90 days, all different types of different cadences. Another thing you can kind of get and view is visibility into what protocols and ciphers I'm running within my environment. So if you can see if I'm not supposed to be running SSL v3 or TLS 1.10, I can hover over here to those protocols. I can see in this case I have a total of 5 running applications with that protocol. I can drill in to see where's that application running, on which NetScaler instance, and remedy that situation. I have some cases where in certain federal agencies, there's a mandate that you've got to have a certain level of key strength and above to maintain their security policy. So I could set a policy around it to say that everything 2K and above for my keys is recommended. Anything outside of that window is not recommended, and help me identify where they're located so I can remedy that situation. So when you take a look, we can provide you that dashboard view where you can get that summary information. You provide you notification. So as you find out when certificates expire, before you find out with a support ticket, you can kind of get ahead of the curve and remedy that situation, where you can provide you email notification or SMS text. We provide you workflow automation. So if you want to update, create a new CSR and update the certificates, you can centrally do that with MAS and push out those new certificates to each one of the individual NetScaler instances within MAS. And we wrap all that up together and an enterprise policy where you can create policy saying that I need to be running this level of protocol. I need to be at this level of key strength. These are my recommended and certified CAs, and anything outside of that window is out of policy, not recommended. Give me visibility notification when that occurs.
A cornerstone of good network management is accurate and reliable configuration, control, and management. And the NetScaler, along with MAS, can provide quite a bit of capabilities in that area. So one of the things we'd like to do with MAS is be able to control all the NetScaler configurations centrally and provide tools that allow you to manage them in a clean and repeatable way. Now, we all know how management can go awry sometimes, and you're exposed to security issues and misconfigurations, and it takes a long time to remediate those. So MAS allows us to create some standardized templates and parameterize those configuration jobs. So for example, just adding a load balancing server, we can go out and use our record and play function, and that record and play function allows us to either do it via command line or via the GUI, and will be created as a file containing the commands necessary to create that, in this case, a load balance server. We probably do this in the lab environment, which means that IP address we're showing there in yellow is the wrong IP address. So what we want to do with that IP address is configure it as a variable. So now we can take that and enter that as on the fly via the GUI, or we can use it as through a CSV file. So first thing we're going to do though is tell which machines we want to affect. Then we'll go out and run this either the CSV file or through the GUI to introduce the proper values, and then run the command file. This allows us to create the changes on the fly and monitor the progress as it goes along. And if there's any issues with a particular NetScaler instance, we can either have the thing skip forward to the next NetScaler or simply stop the action. And of course, we're logging all of this into syslog, so we have all the information at hand for audit purposes as well. Now, one thing that's important after doing some of these changes out here is to get some information from NetScaler and determine, are we doing the right thing? It would really be nice to have a NetScaler expert at our fingertips. And with MAS, you have one. We can pull back the configuration and run out with our configuration advice. Run your configuration against Citrix best practice rules and determine, are you doing the right thing in the right places? You know, for example, in this case, we've got some pretty obvious ones here. No DNS server. There's only one account, one NS root account. You know, so those are obvious ones, but on down deeper, there's quite a few other rules that go through this system to determine, are you doing the right thing? Also, you can extend this with audit templates for your own rules. So if you have issues involving compliance with regulatory bodies or internal rules of your own for your agency, we can accommodate those through audit templates, and you run the same tool here and generate reports indicating your compliance. So this gives you an automated tool to scan through thousands upon thousands of lines of NetScaler code in a few moments and generate just the information you need. Wouldn't it be nice also to actually develop your own NetScaler GUI pages? For example, if you had your DevOps guys out there that really don't want to learn NetScaler, but they want to configure some load balancers, wouldn't it be nice just to give them a page they could run that predefines the stuff you don't have to change, but lets them put their IP addresses and things in, and you can let them do what they need to do? Well, you can. Stylebook templates let you do that. It's written in YAML, which most of our DevOps guys know, so you can get one of them to help you with it. We have some pre-configured ones too for Exchange and SharePoint and some of our GSLB and other functions inside the NetScaler. And it gives a nice, simple interface. So in this case, we're seeing one that we've built for, again, putting up a load balancer. And now we've done this as a fill in the blank. We've preloaded some of the data in here already, including the port and protocol. And behind in the background, we have some of the things set for example, persistence and load balance method and things like that. So this makes it simple and easy for a non-NetScaler person to work with a NetScaler, and allows you to control the universe that they live in. They don't get to change certain things, or they're allowed to only pick certain things. So it makes it very, very straightforward to allow for a non-NetScaler trained person to work with a NetScaler. And through MAS, you log all the operations they do, and you control which NetScaler instances they can affect. So you're not just giving them a login to a NetScaler where they can go off and do things. You're controlling them very carefully through MAS for this.
And within MAS, you can manage all of the different NetScaler form factors and provide for monitoring and reporting capabilities. It's a lot of very good dashboard information you can get out of MAS. And you're going to see one of the real goals we're looking to address here with MAS is to negate the need for you to go to your individual NetScaler instances to manage them independently. So within MAS, you get some nice user-friendly information, quick dashboard view of what's going on within your environment. As you can kind of see here, I can quickly see the health over my overall different NetScalers, whether it be my MPX, my VPX. I can see whether they're up, down, out of service. I can identify what software version they're running at. I can also identify which models are within my environment and how long have they been up. I could also get some additional dashboard information, so I can see if I have config drift, or maybe somebody's been up late, forgot to hit the save command. I can come centrally within MAS and push that save command out to all my NetScaler instances to make sure everything is appropriate. I can see if I have some config drift and identify if anything different from my running config, from my stored config, and I can get some certificate information on my per NetScaler instance within my dashboard. And so the real goal there is that within MAS, you can kind of get that view of your NetScaler instances. So here you can see that if I want to get a particular instance running at, in this case, 192.168.3.01 or NetScaler 1, I want to see my resource allocation for this particular NetScaler. I can see my CPU, my memory, disk. I can see how many certificates are on this NetScaler, how many have expired, how many are up for expiration within the next week or 30 days. I can see my event logs. I can see syslog information. And I also can get an aggregate view of all my different virtual servers in my environment. Just like within the NetScaler GUI itself, you can break it down by load balancing virtual servers, or content switching virtual servers, or gateway virtual servers. We give you that same type of visibility within MAS as well, but you can see at an aggregate level. And you'll see more of that as we go into the demo. Speaking of demo, it is now demo time. So now what we're going to do is segue into the demo and provide you a hand-guided view into the MAS interface. Now understand this is a live demo center. It is provided with simulated traffic, but what we want you to get out of it is getting a visual of some of the benefits MAS could bring to your environment.
So this is the main screen again of our application overview. As you saw in our earlier slide presentation, we were looking at a lot more applications, but still there's a good number here. And this is what I want to call my command intelligence center, if you will, because what I'm looking at is all of the applications I'm running and their current state. So I know how my environment's running at this moment. So for example, we can drill into SAP and look at exactly what's happening here. So this is a real-time look at this, and we can see that our performance index is really pretty good, 91%. And resources look pretty good all across here. But we do have some performance issues again. So, our server probably is a little slow over there. We can quickly scan across, look at our metrics, and those look pretty good. Yeah, client connections aren't bad. No surge queues being triggered. Packet throughput looks minimal at only 10, 20K. So, might be an issue in the back end of that server needs to be looked at. Maybe it's only a small virtual server that's out of resources. But we can quickly look at just this one screen from the NetScaler and make some really sharp determinations and clear determinations of what's going on. If it were the NetScaler, we could drive into services here and take a look more at what's going on the NetScaler itself, and drill deeper in the configuration, see just how it's configured. So if someone's having issues, for example, with their session ending too early or losing connectivity. Maybe we want to look at the load balancing method. Maybe we want to look at the persistence. You know, these are things that can be looked at right here without logging into a particular NetScaler. Notice we haven't mentioned any NetScaler at all. We're simply looking at the service all through here. So this gives us a great way to go drill right down, in this case, to a particular service and see how it's being configured. And of course, we always have an audit log capability, which if we'd made changes on this in the previous screen would be recorded here in the audit log. And this way we always keep an accurate track of what's happening and who's doing it. So the application dashboard is a very, very powerful tool. Let me move up here for a minute and show you a bit more about some of the more interesting things under analytics. So now we've seen what's happening in the applications, we can pivot a bit and look at what groups of applications are doing. So for Web Insight, for example, we can look at the various applications running across our web services. So these would be typically internet-facing or internally-facing web services. And down here, we'll notice we have some applications like SharePoint, SAP, some other tools here. So let's just drill in and look at, for example, SharePoint. And I can look at SharePoint and see all the various things that are going on in SharePoint, where my active pages are, what kind of HTTP responses I'm having. You know, if you have a lot of 404 errors, you might want to take a look and see what's going on there. So this gives us a great view very quickly of what's going on. Also shows our aggregate bandwidth and latencies and response times. So maybe there's a problem with SharePoint overall. We'd see that probably in an increased server response time. And obviously here, our network latency is very, very low. That's very nice. But of course here, our server time is high. So digging deeper into our HDX area, HDX is also very well represented here, as we saw in our slides earlier. And here I can actually drill into individual users and see what they're doing. So let's take a look at, for example, Parker has 2 applications running right now. And I can look at his response time. I can also look very quickly at his actual response time in a graphical view like this, seeing the wide area and local area response network. And then look at the applications he's running. He's running Microsoft Word. And I can look at the actual 2 instances of Microsoft Word. And now I can pivot into the Word application and see what Word is doing. So we can see what actually is happening with his instances of Microsoft Word. Also, we can take a look at the aggregate applications under HDX that are running. So things like Podio, GoToMeeting have been run. Active to date right this moment are Fidelity and Microsoft Word. So let's look at Fidelity a bit. I can see the active sessions being run here. And if I increase my interval out here a bit longer, I'll see more session information. And I can see that Ilium is running this and actually has had several sessions here. His latency and bandwidth are easily displayed. So we can very quickly see what's happening here with those in that case. Gateway Insight's another useful tool because Gateway allows us to see what's happening on our connectivity coming into the network. So this would be, for example, people familiar with the NetScaler product, the Unified Gateway would be reporting information into this. So I can now see users such as John, who has invalid credentials. So this could be something due to a SAML issue on the back end. It could be simply he's not putting the right password in. But in this case, we now know, if we look across here, it's a primary authentication, it's LDAP, and we know the authentication server, and we can go dig into that issue. So if he opens a trouble ticket, our help desk could come to the screen and very quickly understand what's going on. Very, very simple. Drive deep into the bowels of what the NetScaler is doing with authentication. And now for security.
Now within Security Insight, you can kind of get a dashboard view of the overall health of your application security environment. And you can filter this view out, as you can see here, based on the last hour, or down to a configurable time, whether it be a year or something past that time frame. As you come down, you can see an overall view of all your applications. So you can see here I'm running 4 different applications. I can identify my threat level index, my safety level index, and the total amount of attacks I'm seeing for that particular application. And I can actually also toggle this view, come over to the right. So if I want to filter down and say, I'm running hundreds of applications, I want to identify my applications that have the highest threat level right now, come here and filter that down to those particular applications. Now, if I want to drill into that particular application, so in this case, I want to take a look at SAP. It allows me to dig into SAP, and now I can get an aggregate application summary view of the attack vector for SAP. So I can see here my total violations. I can see violations by severity. I can drill into this information, so I can see violations by category. An example, I'm seeing over 750 injections. Now I look in here and I drill down, I can find out the attack time, the client IP, the violation itself, SQL, it was SQL injection. In this case, I might have this in a log status because I don't have the action being blocked. You can see the URL that initiated this and what the violation name is. And I can filter this information if I want to get more information. So I can come down here, and if I want to get additional information such as signature rule ID, total attacks, location, I can just check those boxes, hit submit, and it will populate this tab view for me. And the math is very intuitive. I can, instead of hitting the go back button, I could just go back in the tree here to where I started before, and I'm back to my SAP application summary view. Now, if I scroll down, I'm still under my threat index level summary. So what this allows me to do is get visibility to my security check violations. If I have different signatures running, I can see if they're being hit or being fired on. If I have IP reputation enabled or see any TCP violations, I can get visibility into those as well. And it will be toggled and filtered down here. So if I go with signature violations, I can see which of one of my signatures are being hit, how many times, and what policies, in this case being blocked, how many are being blocked, and I can drill in to get more information. I want to take a look at my security check violations. Say I'm having some things I'm occurring with cross-site scripting. I can drill into there, get that same information across that same time interval. So I can identify the attack time, the client IP, and like I mentioned before, you can filter that information to get more metrics. Another thing you can do with the math is take a look at the safety index. So if I come here, the safety index gives me an overall view of what some of the things I can do to better protect my environment. So at the application layer, there's a couple things you could do. You can enable application firewall. So in this case, I have an application profile, and I could dig into this profile to see a quick dashboard view of what's configured within my environment. So you can see I have some things based on my protections to be blocked. Others, the majority of them are being logged in stat. I can come back out and get some NetScaler recommendations for my environment. Maybe some things that I forgot to configure. So I could go to NetScaler system security, and I have a few different categories I could take a look at. You can kind of see here, it gives me identify how many have not been configured. So if I take a look at access as an example, not drill in here, I have several different entries. Well, as identified before, I only had 2 that were not configured. So in this case, my user interface, my GUI, is not set to less than 10-minute timeout. That is correct, because for this session, I did configure a GUI timeout to be more than 10 minutes. Also set up that I did not enable strong password. Of course, it's a demo. Want to make sure you have easy access. So these are some basic recommendations that you can be provided to let you know what you need to do to get a better safety index and better protect your environment. The next thing I want to take a look at as we can go from here is that you can get that dashboard view of your security environment. So if you go to Application Security Dashboard, it gives you another type of view into the environment. So you still get your threat index level, you still get your safety index level, get your total violations, but this is an aggregate across your whole enterprise. And you can kind of drill in a little bit to get more information on particular different application security attacks. So if I want to take a look at that, say, cross-site scripting as an example, I can hover over it and see at 10:38 this morning, I had 6 attacks. I can drill in here and get more information of when did those attacks occur and get the same information of the attack time, client IP, and all that information about that particular attack. So I know where to begin to look to troubleshoot. Another thing I want to show, and we talked about a little bit earlier, was the benefit of our SSO dashboard. So it talks about those folks out there that have to manage and maintain certificates. So you come into your dashboard, you can see up in the top left corner here, I can see right away, nice color coded, How many of my certificates have already expired? In this case, I have 15. How many are upcoming for expiration within the next week, next 30 days, and then up to the next 90 days? Now I have customers out there that have to address and maintain certain security audits and profiles. So they might have a policy in place to say certain ciphers and protocols are no longer supported or deprecated within their environments. So we want to get visibility into that environment and ensure that they're meeting their security posture. So I can come over and say, okay, well, TLS 1.0 should not be running in my environment, but here I'm seeing 5. I can kind of drill in there and get information on which NetScaler instance is running on, what application, and I can go ahead and remedy that scenario. Also can make this around a policy-based setting. So I come to settings. I can create an enterprise policy to say who's going to be my recommended CA, what are going to be my allowed signatures, what are going to be my allowed encryption key strengths, what are going to be my allowed SSL protocols, and I can decide whether I want to get an email notification or SMS notification via text. And I can also set the cadence of when I want to find out when are my certificates going to expire, whether it be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever your cadence. You can set that up right here. I'll also give you the ability within MAS to install and push out updated certificates from MAS to your individual NetScaler instances. You come back to the dashboard, you can hit install, upload your certificate file, your key file, and identify which instances you want to push those certificates to, and MAS will push it out. Now, what will be nice about it is that once you push it out, you come back here to the dashboard, and under it, you can have certificate files to get a track of the certificates you have installed in MAS, your keys, your CSRs, as well as get an audit trail for those different logs. Next thing I want to touch on is some of the reporting capabilities or monitoring capabilities you get within MAS. And so as I mentioned before, MAS does provide that centralized management capability and hardware inventory. So you can kind of get a nice dashboard view of all your different applications within the environment. So I come down here down to network functions. I can see at a real quick dashboard view my top 5 highest client connections, as well as my top 5 highest backend server connections. I come down and see my maximum throughput, as well as those hitting my non-load throughput I might want to investigate. Come down and get some additional information and get visibility into what protocols I'm seeing run across my environment, what's the majority load balancing method I'm leveraging, the type of persistence, and the overall health of my virtual servers. Another good benefit you can do is that from a centralized view, you can get an aggregate view of all of your virtual servers. So whether it be your load balancing servers, your content switching servers, we break it down the same way you're used to today in the NetScaler management GUI system. So you see load balancing, I expand that, highlight my virtual servers, and I see across the enterprise all my virtual servers. And I can filter this and toggle this based on all these different menus up here. So whether I'm looking for the name, I want to do a search on a particular protocol as an example, I can say, let me find all my V servers that are running SSL. I hit refine search, and all my SSL V servers come up. If I want to do some basic configuration for that particular V server, I can click that guy, hit this button here, and say configure. And it'll bring up a splash page will allow me to add additional services. I can change some settings here where I can change the load balancing method. I can add persistence, and I can make that change here within MAS, and MAS will push it out to the individual NetScaler instance without having you have to go to that individual NetScaler instance to make those changes. Next thing I want to talk about is a dashboard view you can get within MAS for the different NetScaler instances. So MAS considers everything it manages as an instance. So we break it down based on the form factor of that instance. So you'll see NetScaler NPX, our VPX, our CPX for our container-based platform. Let's take a look at our VPX here. So I want to come in and I want to say, I want to look at and get the quick dashboard view of that particular NetScaler instance. I can highlight that particular instance, hit this dashboard, and it'll give me some of the resource information for that particular NetScaler. So I can see my CPU utilization, I can see my memory utilization, disk, I get some overall health information, certificate for that particular NetScaler instance, syslog and event information. To kind of scroll down here, get some basic system information for that particular appliance, and then I can kind of get and see some configuration information. I can see what licensed features are enabled on this platform. You see I'm running Platinum, so I have access to pretty much almost everything, and what configuration modes I have enabled on this platform. One thing I want to kind of highlight, we talked a little bit about before about was orchestration. And so MAS is going to be an integration point if you're looking to do anything with the cloud. So if you're looking at, like I said, leveraging OpenStack, or if you're looking at building out containers and it's looking for support for Kubernetes or Mesos, we have support for that. If you're looking at anything with, say, software-defined networking, so looking at Cisco ACI or VMware NSX, MAS will be the integration point for those systems as well. And of course, there's some system information that gives you basic access so you can authenticate to MAS externally, whether it be LDAP, TACACS, Radius. You can support multiple different authentication methods there. So the last thing we want to show is, we touched on it in the presentation, was config advice. If I go on the network, on the config audit, hit config advice, I can have a NetScaler configuration. It could be a file maybe located on my desktop here I can pull up, or maybe I want to pull something up from a NetScaler I just provisioned and I want to run it against the internal Citrix database. So I can identify that particular NetScaler, choose one that's up and running, hit configuration, and it will run that against the database and give me recommendation. Now, this is not the end-all be-all. This is just a gold standard or reference point you can leverage to say, I'm looking to get started. I want to make sure I have some basic conditions adhered to. What's nice about this tool is that you can make the changes here as well. So you can, if you want to enable, in this case, so DNS is not configured, you can actually select this, and it'll give you the commands that you need to enable DNS. What's nice, you can actually push those commands out as well. And that's going to conclude the demo section of our session today. We're going to look to talk about opening up for questions and see if there's any questions that we have not been able to address that maybe Brett and I can address on the line here.
Well, I'd like to speak about one thing here as well, is that the nice thing about MAS, it also allows us to, through the tools you just saw there, to provide compliance capabilities and provide compliance reporting. So we can provide compliance reporting for things such as PCI, so that you can, if any of you are doing any monetary credit card transaction information out there, we can provide reporting capabilities inside of MAS to ensure that you're getting the correct policies in place to ensure to help ensure PCI compliance. Also, as you just saw, as Rich was doing there with the configuration advice tool, we can actively look at the configuration and ensure that we're getting all the correct policies in place as configurations are being built, and then use the configuration audit tools to ensure that those continue to stay that way over time. So if a troubleshooting event occurs and someone changes the SSL encryption or turns it off, you'll be able to find that quickly looking through the configuration audit. So very multifaceted tool here in MAS, from performance to configuration management to encryption and compliance management.
Yeah, Brett mentioned, so MAS is a very feature-rich product. Now, hopefully after today's session, you can have a better understanding of some of the benefits that can be leveraged for your environment using MAS. Now, if you're looking to find more information about how to get MAS, you can reach out to your local Citrix account team, and they'll be more than willing to get in contact with you. So whether come on site, have a call, conference call, go to meeting, to speak more in detail of how Mass can be applicable to your environment. I understand Mass is a free download, so this is something you can get today, but feel free to reach out to your account team to help have that conversation and help set it up for you in a test environment for your environment. Now, following this session, you will get a follow-up email. We'll give you some links to some additional information. And if you have any further questions that were not answered in the chat today, or something that comes up a little bit later, you can respond to that email or reach out to your local Citrix account team.
Great. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that. So yeah, as Rich said, concluding this presentation, you will be getting a follow-up email with some contact information. So please feel free to reach out to your teams. If you're not sure who that team is, you can reach out to the contacts on that email, and we'll gladly put you in touch with your local SE. And again, if there's anything that we didn't cover that you guys want to see more of, please let us know that. And if you want to go deeper into MAS, right, reach out to us, reach out to your SEs, and we'll be happy to go over this with you and dig as deep as you feel like you need. Well, with that, Brett and Rich, I appreciate your time. Everybody, I appreciate everybody joining our webinar. Hope you guys got some value out of it. And again, please feel free to reach out. We're here for you. Anything that you guys need, ask, and we'll do the best we can to accommodate. So hope everybody's having a great day and a good lunch hour, depending on what part of the country you're at. And we will talk to you again. Thank you guys very much. Bye-bye.